Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I have a 15 tips video for you today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Salt. I'm an LR5 with over 6,000 hours in the game. I'm also widely considered the most physically attractive, emotionally mature, and sexually competent player in all of Warframe. And so I'm excited today to bring you 15 tips to make your experience in Warframe better. But before we start that, let's go over our first and top commenter board of the last video. It's going to be I am Kodiak Bear for the first commenter and Carrie Smith 87 for the top commenter. And of course, we have the recent channel supporters here of Whoopty Wham, Nice Bear, and Colonel Suro 6. Thank you so much for your support. Now, Andy, go ahead and cue up that instructional video music. Number one is polarity switching. And if you're an OCD person like myself and you like to have your mods in very specific places all the time, this is really the tip for you. So we go into a weapon like the Quelor, and we go to upgrade. And let's say we wanted to move this D polarity here, maybe down here, and we wanted to move this V polarity over to the left where that D polarity was. We would just go to actions, swap polarity, move this down here, move this over here. We could also switch around other things. It doesn't really matter. And we go to apply, and it saves everything. And it doesn't cost any forma, it doesn't reset the weapon, nothing like that. Now, unfortunately, it does require that you at least have one forma on the weapon itself already. Why? I have no idea, but that's just a requirement for you to be able to do that polarity switching. Number two is using specific Parazon mods to make any Warframe a stealth spy frame. And if we go to upgrade here, it really comes down to one specific mod, although another mod does help. And that's going to be untraceable. You get invisibility for 15 seconds after hacking. And with spy missions, even to enter the vault, you have to hack to enter it. Then you usually have to hack other terminals to get to the last terminal. And so this makes any Warframe be able to just be permanently stealth. There are people that just like to roleplay as Avara, or maybe they like to roleplay as Loki going through spy missions, but it's not required. I have not used a invisibility Warframe for a spy mission in literal years. The other thing that does help is the mod Intruder. This gives you plus 8 seconds to hacking. Now, usually you don't need the entire amount of seconds to hack a terminal, but when you fail, when you accidentally click on the wrong thing, it does reduce a certain amount of seconds. So this mod here, Intruder, basically just gives you a buffer where you can misclick like 2 or 3 times and still be able to have a successful hack. Number 3 is the accessibility option that lets you fire semi-automatic weapons as if they were automatic. So we're going to go to Escape, we're going to go to Options, then the very right tab is Accessibility, and 2 options down is Fire Manual Trigger Weapons Continuously. Make sure that's clicked on, go to confirm, and now a weapon like the Prisma Gridlock that's normally a semi-automatic weapon, I can now just hold left click and it will continue to fire based on whatever fire rate I have on the weapon. So the more fire rate, the quicker it's going to fire. This was added so that people have less chance of developing carpal tunnel when using semi-automatic weapons. And even before this was added, they actually added the option with melee to do the same thing. You can just hold the melee button and it will continually melee instead of having to click it every time. Number 4 is another accessibility option, and this gives enemies a slight highlight so that you can see them easier. If you notice, all these enemies have a slight red tinge to them. That lets me see them a bit better at a distance. And to do this, we're going to press Escape. We're going to go to Options. Again, all the way at the right is going to be Accessibility. This time we're going to scroll all the way down, and we have Character Highlighting. So we're going to make sure Enemy Highlights is clicked on. Enemy highlight color, I prefer red, but you can change whatever color you want. And enemy highlight intensity, I like 25. The more you increase this, the more bright cherry red they become. We can go ahead and look and see what they look like when it's at 100 here. Personally, I think this is a bit too bright. This kind of breaks my immersion a bit compared to only 25. So I'm going to go back in there, go to Options, Accessibility. I'm going to bring that back down to 25, the one I like, but you can use whatever you like there. You can also use ally highlights to highlight your allies. I personally do not use this, and you can use self highlight to highlight yourself if you want. Again, I don't personally use this. Number 5 is using your codex to quickly and easily figure out which mods you're still missing. Now, for brand new players, this is probably not going to be too useful because you're still going to be missing a lot of mods in the game. But for mid-game and end-game players, you're really going to love this tip. So go to your codex, press X to get into it. You're going to go to Universe, you're going to go to Mods, and you're going to sort by duplicates. This is going to bring up a list of every mod that is and was available in Warframe. And what you're going to do now is you're going to scroll all the way to the right because that's going to bring up the mods that you still don't have. And the mods that you don't have are going to be grayed out. So for me, you can see I'm missing 4 mods here. So I'm missing Spontaneous Singularity and Pain Points, which are from the new Nightwave. And I'm missing Cataclysmic Gate and MahiCG's Fortune, which honestly, I've just been too lazy to trade my wife for these because she's in New Loca. So eventually I'll trade her for these 2. But this is an easy way to tell what mods you're still missing. Number 6 is keeping a completed inventory of consumable items that you use the most in your foundry. This gives you easy access and an easy visual inventory of all your consumables. And to show this, I'm going to go into my foundry here. I'll go into my in progress bar. And I have all of the consumables that I personally use the most in my inventory here, ready to claim. So this gives me an easy visual on how many I have of each. And when I need to replace them, all I do is click to claim them and I build them again to add them to the list here again. Now, the amount of inventory you keep is really going to be based on where you are in the game. If you're a brand new player, maybe you only keep an inventory of 10 of each item that you use. Maybe if you're a mid-game player, it's 100 of each item. For me, I like to keep 10,000 of each item because you never know when a single mission requires 10,000 squad energy restores. Number 7 is understanding that trade chat in-game only serves to scam new players. For every 1 person in trade chat trying to sell something legitimately, there are like 100 people trying to scam you. And to show this, I went on Warframe.market, which is a third-party site that you should be using to buy and sell things on Warframe. That's the site that's actually going to tell you the real price that things sell and buy for. And I went on there and I checked this Sevagoth Prime set. Sevagoth Prime currently, as of today, is going for 20 platinum. And I went on Trade Chat in-game and I went to buy a Sevagoth Prime set. And I'm going to show you the tells that I got back from this. So the first guy here, Indicate Wolf, he's selling it for 80 plat, so 400% the price that you should be paying it for. Rockfire Faust, selling it for 50 plat. That is 250% the normal price. Iced Murloc was the best offer I had, which was 30 plat. That's only 150% more than what you should be paying for it, which is a lot more than what you should be paying for, but he was the best one out of all of them. Let's look at some of the others. Emma Myers, 60 plat, that's 300% more than what you should be paying. The Icy Hawkage, 50 plat, that's 250% more than what you should be paying. This guy was the worst. Ghosty is selling Sevagoth Prime for 200 plat. This is a set that sells for 20 plat. He's selling, what is that, 1,000%? 1,000% more than what you should be paying. MVI1KY, 50 plat. Again, 250% more than what you should be paying. Chubby, 70 plat. I don't even know the math on that, but it's like 350%, I think, more than what you should be paying. Derop Bop 40, which is 200% more than what you should be paying. PM Koto 100 plat. That is 500% more than what you should be paying. Asriel's Return. Where was it here? Sevagoth Prime is being sold for 70 plat. That is like 350% more than what you should be paying. This guy's 70 plat, 350% more. So there was not a single tell I got back that was actually selling it for the price that it's going for on Warframe.market. The closest dude was Iced Murloc, right? He's only selling it for 10 plat more. It's not too bad, but I still wouldn't pay 150% of what I should be paying. Number 8, join a dojo. So dojos have the obvious benefit where you get easy access to a trade terminal, and you have the Corpus shop, the Grenier shop, the Infested shop, the Tenno shop, and so on. And so you have all these, different weapons and even some pets and some of them that you can get. But you also get the social aspect with a dojo, and this really depends on which dojo you join. Make sure you're joining an active dojo. So a dojo like ours, we have pretty frequent events that we hold about once a week. We're a pretty cheap dojo. Our events, you know, the prices for them are usually like a 3-forma bundle or a 75 plat color palette. You know, we have the strip club room here that we do our fashion frame contests in. We have another room where we do ugly frame contests. We do trivia, things like that. Some other dojos might have more expensive prizes that they give out. And so it's a great way to be a bit social and also maybe to get some rewards for being social. So it's a good thing that I think most people shouldn't miss out on. Number 9 is to make your goal to unlock Steel Path. Now, don't burn yourself out on your way to Steel Path. Make sure you're actually still enjoying yourself, you're having fun, but you really want to get to Steel Path for a few reasons. Let me go into the navigation here. And if I scroll over Steel Path, it'll tell you that you get plus 100% resource drop chance and a plus 100% mod drop chance that's just active all the time as long as you're in Steel Path. Enemies in Steel Path are also a little bit tankier, they're a little bit chunkier, and so it allows for more abilities that are kind of useless in non-Steel Path because maybe enemies die too quickly, to be a little bit more useful in Steel Path where enemies can take a little bit more of a beating. So generally I find it a lot more fun than just normal path where enemies just die in one shot and fall over to anything. Number 10 is Archon Shards. When you get to the point where you can finally start farming these things, you're going to be wanting to do these farms every single week like clockwork. Because even when you think you have a lot of Archon Shards, you're not going to have enough. And it's because usually, depending on you and how you like to build, there's usually that one specific Archon Shard that a lot of your builds tends to use a lot of. If you notice, for me, it's red shards. I'm always in need of red shards. I have so many yellows and blues that I'm sitting on, but I could always use extra red shards. Now, the 5 pieces of content that you're always going to want to do every week is going to be Elite Deep Archimedia, Elite Temporal Archimedia, Netrocells. Bird 3 will also have 1 basic Archon Shard in his inventory for sale, and then the Archon Hunt every week. So those 5 pieces of content are the basic ways to get your Archon Shards. There's also some weird janky ways. Sometimes there's Twitch drops that have Archon Shards. Sometimes DE puts in like special events that give you Archon Shards. But besides those weird janky ways, the 5 things you should always do every week, again, EDA, ETA, Netrocell, the Archon Hunt, and the Bird 3 inventory Archon Shard. Number 11 is Syndicates. Don't get caught up too much on which syndicate is the best, because there's not really one best one. What you're going to want to actually do is ally with all of them eventually. So my suggestion is pick the syndicate that has the augments for the Warframes that you're playing the most currently, and then as you max out that syndicate's inventory, then you're going to want to switch your alliance to another combo of syndicates. So syndicates are always going to be allied with each other. So there's going to be the Red Veil that's allied with Steel Meridian, Arbiter of Hexus allied with Cephalon Suda, and Nuloka allied with Perrin Sequence. There's really only 3 sets that you need to eventually switch your alliances to. There are weird janky ways where you can have 3 or 4 alliances at a time, but I find those to be more of a headache to do than actually useful. Number 12 is the 2 mandatory mods for pets. And that's going to be Vacuum and Primed Animal Instincts for robotic type pets, and Fetch and Primed Animal Instincts for biological type pets. Vacuum and Fetch are effectively the exact same mod, it's just that one is for robotic pets and one is for biological type pets. So Vacuum scoops your loot up for you, which in itself wouldn't really be worthy of being a mandatory mod, but it also scoops up your health orbs, your energy orbs, and your ammo, which is what makes it mandatory. Primed Animal Instincts gives you loot radar and enemy radar. The enemy radar is the more important one here. Now, it's really hard to quantify how much DPS this actually increases you by, because it doesn't technically increase your DPS here. But if you know where the next group of enemies is, that is a massive DPS increase. More so than just 1.2 crit damage that you get from Tenacious Bond. This could triple, quadruple, 5 times the amount of DPS that you can get just because you know exactly where to go to get the most damage, where the biggest groups of enemies are. This is a mod that a lot of people sleep on because they don't really, there's not a number on it that says does this much damage like Tenacious Bond has. But the actual functionality of it and what it does is so ridiculously powerful, it's really hard not to have this on your build. Your Warframe would have to have some kind of innate enemy radar. And in that case, you wouldn't need to use this, in that specific situation. But generally, these are the two mods you're always going to want to have on pets. There are so many times I see new players not running with either of these, and sometimes I see mid-game or even end-game players not running with Prime Animal Instincts, and it's kind of crazy. But this is what I consider the two mandatory mods. Number 13 is to try to farm your progress in Warframe rather than buying your progress in Warframe. And that's because Warframe doesn't technically have an endgame right now. The endgame in Warframe is doing the weekly stuff that gives you Archon shards, which, like we talked about before, is EDA, ETA, a single Netracell, and then the Archon hunt. All those together usually take about 2.5 hours, then you're done for the entire week. And so by buying progress in Warframe, you're effectively paying to lose content. And I don't feel like that's a really great thing. Now, there are farms in Warframe that are completely ridiculous. There are farms in Warframe that takes months or years to do. After years of passively farming the Bratton Vandal blueprint and the Lado Vandal barrel from Zone 8 Sanctuary Onslaught, and still it wasn't dropping, I did eventually buy the Lado Vandal barrel and the Bratton Vandal blueprint. So there are ridiculous farms that I could completely understand, but everything else, if a farm takes a couple of weeks to do, whatever, do it for a few weeks. I remember spending a month and a half trying to get the mod Juggle His Spines on the Cambodian Drift, and it was, at the time, it was kind of crappy. But I kind of look back at that and I'm like, well, it was interesting. I spent some time doing some content that I would have never normally done. So that's just my suggestion there. Again, you can spend your money how you like, but I think farming your progress in the game there's also a little bit more merit to it. Number 14 is the check player profile function. Now, this is important to use if someone is trying to give you advice on a weapon or a Warframe and you're thinking of maybe spending Forma into it, or if someone's trying to argue with you and say, your build is wrong, mine is better, and so you just check their profile, you see how much experience that they have on the thing that they're claiming they have experience on, and then you can make your own decision from there. This is important because I have noticed a ridiculous amount of Warframe players lack the ability to just say, I don't know. It's just that simple. It's okay to not know everything. There are literally thousands of things in Warframe that you could put mods on. You cannot feasibly know everything in the game. It's understandable. So what you're gonna want to do, like let's say I have a guy here in Region Chat, and I don't wanna, say he's doing anything wrong. All he says is I've been using Riot 848. Okay, that's cool. So I'm gonna click on him here. I'm gonna go to Profile. I'm going to go to Equipment. I'm going to go to Pistol, or Secondary, I should say. And we're going to scroll down to Riot 848, and we'll see how much he's been using the Riot 848. And we look here, and he has 171 kills on it. That's like less than a single mission or a very short mission. So he's really only been using it for like a single mission. Again, nothing against this guy. He has been using the Riot 848 technically. He's been using it for one mission's worth. But this is the kind of thing you're going to want to do when people are maybe being a little bit more aggressive to you towards like their knowledge on something, is you just want to kind of check them. And you can do that through the player profile function. You can check Warframes too. Just keep in mind, Warframes are a little bit difficult to check. And that's because not all Warframes get their kills through their abilities. And if that's the case, that Warframe might have a very high play amount, but a very low kill rate. And it's because the kills are actually being done on the weapons. So just keep that in mind. Number 15 is don't lose sight of the big picture because you're only focused on the meta. And I'm going to use myself and someone else as an example of this. So about 2 years ago during TennoCon, me and someone else, we were trying to farm as many relics as we could so we could get Ducatis for our space Bugattis. And he was wanting to run a 4-person Titania group where everyone had to have Razor Wing Blitz, because at the time that was the quickest possible way you could be doing your relic farming. And me, I didn't want to sit in recruit chat recruiting for this like hyper min-max group the entire time. So I just went about my business. I think I did it on Rhino. I was just inviting random people. I was just joining random groups. I wasn't even in recruiting chat. And so I ended up farming like 10 times more ducats than he did, probably more than 10 times more ducats than he did, because he spent most of his time in recruiting chat, recruiting people that some of them couldn't even do a lot of runs. They were just doing maybe 2 or 3 runs before they left. And so he had to keep going back and recruiting chat. So he had completely lost sight of what he was actually trying to do by trying to be too min-maxed and too meta. And in the end, he kind of lost for it. And there's a lot of examples of this. You know, it's not just ducat farming. There's a lot of other examples that, you know, other people maybe can think of, and you can put it in the comments, where people lose sight of the big picture because they're trying to be so meta focused. So yeah, this is a really good tip I have, I think, as a final tip. So that's my 15 general tips that I think would make your Warframe experience a little bit better. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.